just in case anybody who comes in late for the class. All right, so we'll pretend we're starting over. No. Okay, so that's why I really, really, really want this to be in person, and I'm kind of resenting these first couple of weeks, but that's how it goes. And I've really got my fingers crossed that we'll be able to then just zoom right through the rest of the semester in person and be fine. Last semester, I taught this class with masks and social distancing and hand cleaning and all that stuff, and it worked out great. Yeah, it feels a little funny at first to do public speaking with a mask on, but once you start to get used to it, you really, I mean, some of you wear masks way more than I do. So, I mean, you get used to it. You know, it's not a perfect world, but you get used to it. But the difference between speaking on Zoom in front of you here now, talking to my computer again, as I do so much, and then speaking in person in front of a group of people is a remarkable difference. And that's why I really think public speaking needs to be done in person. And so at its heart, this is a public speaking class. And you will be doing first some very brief presentations, right? As soon as we get back in person, the third week, the second class of that third week, you will be doing a very brief presentation. And then after that, another one, then after that, another one. And you will probably do, it'll probably work out to be about 6 presentations, gradually getting bigger or more complicated or more research or stuff like that, and different types of presentations. But there's more to this class than that. That is the main part. But there's also, we have some one aspect which is a bit more journalistic, but applies really to everybody, is you will be learning about and doing a little bit of interviewing, asking other people questions. Like, for instance, you're going to find your advisor and have to ask your advisor some questions, and then record a transcript. Well, I mean, like with notes, taking notes during an interview, and then submitting it to me. And then ideally having them tell me how you did too, with an email to me. So that's going to happen. That'll be that interviewing. So you learn about interviewing. You'll actually interview somebody else, probably someone in your family, for the information you're going to need for a future presentation too. So there's interviewing. The other thing is that this class includes some pretty basic writing stuff, some kind of introductory stuff. Which is could be useful to anybody, whether you're in journalism or not. So it's made to be pretty universal. And if you happen to be in journalism, it actually kind of links in to some of the introductory writing classes in journalism as you move ahead too. But it's just basic word distinctions. I'm learning those, and a few other things too about how to cut some clutter out of your writing, make your writing a little bit more specific and concrete. Not a lot of that stuff. We can't fit that much in with all these presentations and interviewing and everything too, but there'll be a little bit of it. So although the first couple of presentations are going to be kind of about you, so there's not that much research required, I will want to tell you that in the later presentations, you do a larger informational, and then towards the very end, a larger persuasive presentation. Those will require some research, online research, potentially even library research, perhaps still done online, kind of, maybe even with the help of a librarian, probably online, whatever. But the library will be open to one degree or another. So there's going to be some research necessary in some of the later presentations. And there's going to be a couple of written assignments. There's only going to be one, I hesitate to call it a paper. It's not a paper. It's really just a bit of a long essay, just a few pages. I think it's 3 pages minimum, something like that. That will be, I'll actually, within a couple of classes, I'll be assigning that, but you'll have a long time to do it, about analyzing a presentation, someone else's speech, right? About how we analyze speeches. So you're going to be doing that. And you'll have the opportunity to do another one of those for extra credit with a little slightly different focus. And what else am I supposed to tell you? Yeah, I wanted to tell you that this whole thing with this first 2 weeks, it also means that I really want to fit all this stuff in, right? I don't want to kill you with a schedule that goes crazy, though. It is true, the first half of this class, first 7-8 weeks, are pretty jam-packed with stuff, right? So, and then when we get these first couple of weeks like this, it actually could mean that the third and fourth week, especially, the third and fourth week, could get congested with a few different things going on at the same time to try to get us sort of back on track in a way. So it's going to take some careful preparation and realization that it's not like we have 2 fake weeks and then we really get started. You really have to do some work on your own for these first couple of weeks to get ready for that third week when some things will really kick into gear like crazy. And there's some opportunity to get ahead on a few things now to give you more time for other things then. And I'll go over that more in a minute. Looking at my notes, okay, let me show you some things on the screen, okay? The Moodle site, and then some of the first stuff for you to do, and the schedule and where you'll find that. And well, I usually will begin the class by going over the daily schedule on Moodle. So I'm going to go to that stuff now. So I'm going to share my screen. Again, interrupt me either by waving your hand or just calling out if you have any questions. So let me share my screen here. Hold on. Okay, you should all be seeing the Moodle site. If you have any trouble, let me know. It looks a little different than your Moodle page because it's mine, but it's this class's page, so it looks probably pretty similar. You should all spend some time on the Moodle page, especially for these first few weeks where there's more stuff here. But I use the Moodle schedule all the time. When we're really in class in person, I tend to write this stuff on the board because I don't like, especially in this class in particular, showing a lot of stuff on a screen. But we are what we are right now. So I want to bring your attention, first of all, this daily schedule. The first link on the Moodle page. You should look at that regularly. If you have any question about what was due, what is due, what's happening, okay? It's the real schedule. There is a syllabus here on Moodle, and a big full-size syllabus, which I'm not even going to show you, but which I'm going to hold you to the stuff in it. So I'm going to suggest you look at. I have like a short version in a minute that I'll show you. But yes, the syllabus does have a schedule in it, which is like a suggested schedule, but this is the real schedule, all right? And actually, it's so real that a ways down there, I don't know, week 7, 8, or 9, or something like that, there's actually a note in there that's for me to say I have more editing to do because we push this semester back a week, and then we get these 2 weeks and juggling and so on. But at least the first few weeks should be pretty well set. So you'd look like today, week 1, class 1. Hey, it's today. And there's a special note here on the top. It says, this is a good reminder for me to tell you, are you on campus now or soon? Please pick up a handout packet on my door, 231 Ward when you arrive. Well, there's a little problem with that. The problem is the administration has decided today not to open Ward Hall, which is where my office is, which actually has some other rooms you could use too, including a lab, which is supposed to be available to you. And I got some messages into them, and so the doors are locked, in other words. So you couldn't get in if you wanted to, which isn't right. Even though this is a remote, I'm available for in-person office hours or Zoom or phone, whatever. So I'm hoping to get some clarification from them and get them to open up the doors in the future. And I'll let you know when that happens. And when it does, I will have a packet for you, which I'll show you the packet in a minute, of stuff which right now is still available to you in Moodle in digital form. But I think it'd be a lot better for you if you had the physical packet. Okay. Let me just see. All right, good. So we'll see about that. But so the packet, you can't come to my room, right to my office and pick up the packet in my door right now, this moment, but hopefully I'll be sending you an email soon saying, yes, you can. So introduction syllabus, what's due next class? My suggestion is you read chapters 1 and 2. All right, I warned everybody to get the textbook. However, there's a few people who just joined the class like a day or 2 ago. So you didn't know to get the textbook, but you really need the textbook. What textbook? Well, everybody at this point should have that in their email. But if for any reason you didn't get the textbook, you'll see these first 2 chapters, I have put them on Moodle for you. But I'm not going to be putting every chapter on Moodle for you. So you really need to get the textbook. And I really think it's a good idea to get on paper textbook. More about the textbook in a minute. And it says start working on study guide 1. Well, what is that? Well, I'm going to show you in a minute. Then you could look ahead to the next class and the next class to see what's coming up as far as what's going to be required when and when our first presentation is. I'll let you look through the schedule as you go along more as you wish, okay? So at least you know what to do next class. Read chapters 1 and 2 in the textbook and start working on the study guide. And I'll show you some other things you could do too if you have a little chance to get ahead now. As I said, over these next few weeks, you can always look ahead and get a little ahead because it might help you when we hit week 3. Okay, all right, moving back to the Moodle homepage. Yes, I do keep attendance. Attendance is required, and I do put the attendance into Moodle afterwards. So if you ever, not now, I mean, like weeks from now, you want to be reminded how many classes you've missed, or confirm that you and I have the same idea about how many classes you have missed or not missed. You can go look there because that's my record of it, and yours too. I mean, for you to see. There is an announcement forum here, which is theoretically, if I have announcements for the whole class, I might put them in there and they would get emailed to you. Honestly, I've been doing more just straight email lately, but email, just as a reminder for me to say, whether I do it here, and then the email kind of comes from Moodle, or whether I just send you an email, send the whole class email. I'm afraid, for better or worse, I use email a lot. So it's going to be email is the main way I'm going to alert you to reminders, changes, corrections, updates, so on. And not just during these first couple weeks, but especially during these. All right, so then you get down to the syllabus area. There is a complete syllabus, as I said. I'm not going to click on that link because it's enormous and boring, and would have been a waste of paper for me to print it out and give it to you anyway. But it's there, so you should look at it, I suppose, because I'm going to hold you to everything in it. But most everything that's important in it is in this document instead, which is the syllabus summary, which I will make a little bit bigger for you. And just to tell you that, it says my office hours. Yeah, I suppose I do have office hours, but sometimes I change them and so on. But I'm really available a lot. And if you can always try to come by during the regular semester when the doors are open. If you want to see me in person and you are on campus, you can actually come by, but more likely you're going to want to get in touch with me via email and set up either a Zoom session or a phone call, or you could email to set up an in-person session too, because I am on campus and available. I do teach traditionally, even last semester, I taught a few in-person classes. This semester, this is my only in-person class, but okay, so, and there's my email address again, in case you need it. TAs will work as speech coaches, and here is contact information for Nate and Mackenzie right there, which I believe I got right. And hopefully they will tell me if I got it wrong. So you're gonna really wanna record that, keep that handy for yourself, because you're gonna be trying in 3 weeks from now, realizing you missed a speech coaching session, but you really got to practice your speech or else you're not allowed to give it. And therefore you got to text them to try to set up an appointment or something. You'll need right now The Art of Public Speaking by Stephen Lucas. We're using the 13th edition. Back when I turn the screen on again, I'm going to try to remember to hold it up for you so you can see it. I really think you should get the on-paper textbook, because I actually believe, and there are plenty of studies that show that you absorb more when you actually have it on paper and can go through it. But whatever, one way or another, you need to get the book. This is Associated Press style book. If you are a journalism student, you really ought to have, you got to have one. It's going to be required for lots of classes, so you might as well just go buy it. And it's not exactly required for this class. And if you're not a journalism student, I suppose don't go out and buy it unless you want to. It's a great writing guide. It's got lots of extremely current usage information. It's got lots of fantastic help with punctuation, all kinds of stuff. It applies to most every kind of writing you do, with a few exceptions. And in fact, it's so current that every year they come out with a new one. if you just get one this year's or one within a couple of years, you would probably find it current enough for journalism students to use during 4 years here. Yes, there's going to be handouts when we meet in person, at least, so you could have some way to keep them. And yes, you're going to need to take some notes at some classes, but not this one. Don't bother writing this stuff down. It's all right here. Grades. Yeah, I got to go over this boring stuff, so please bear with me. You got all kinds of little stuff. Well, it's not that little really, but study guides, which actually are pretty big. Exams, written assignments, all that stuff is only worth 30%, but that's still pretty significant. The presentations themselves, although they're all not weighted equally, are worth 60% of your grade, and then participation and engagement is worth 10%. So on Zoom, that usually means being visible and being connected to the stuff one way or another, and then later hopefully asking questions as we go along through stuff that's more real material, and answering my questions when I ask them on Zoom and then in person too. Even in person, when we wear masks in person, that is a bit of a barrier, and sometimes it makes you feel like you a little less connected to the material, just the fact you have a mask on. So it's important. On Zoom, it's really hard. You got to really force yourself to start to stay engaged. I hope you are doing that. In person with the mask, there's still a bit of a barrier, so it still takes a little extra work on your part. So you really need you to try to engage. Presentations are evaluated with simple check scale. That'll make more sense when you actually see it happen. But I tell you ahead of time, I give you the rubric about what I will be looking for in the presentation. And honestly, you just get up there and do your best, and you're going to do fine as far as the grade goes. And actually, as far as everything goes, even though it may not feel that way, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And as far as the grade goes, I tell you what, you just get up there and do your best, and you basically fulfill the requirements. The grade is going to be fine for the presentation. It talks about the letter grades, attendance policy. If you get perfect attendance, then you will get a bonus of some kind. I'm being vague about that. So I generally either remove a low or missing assignment, but not presentations. You have to do every presentation in this class to pass the class. That's something that's really stressed here. You can't skip a presentation. You can't say, I'm going to skip that one. You got to do it. You got to do every presentation. You might hopefully do them all on time too. I mean, on the day when the presentation is supposed to happen. But if you need to do, if something happens and one get pushed late a little bit or something, yes, there'll be a deduction, but at least you got to do it. Okay. But if you attend perfect attendance, that's great. And you know what? I really stress, if for some reason things happen, I know things happen, you don't have the assignment ready or whatever, still come to class. Okay. It's okay. It's still most important that you come to class, even if you didn't do the work or the reading or something, still come to class. Come to class. Ideally, you have everything done and the reading and everything too. But the third and fourth absence will result in a 5-point grade deduction. So in other words, there's deductions for missing 3 classes and then the 4th class, and more than 4 classes is listed as receiving automatically a failing grade. Now, if you've got something happens, there's a family crisis, some other significant, illness, accident, whatever, just do your best to stay in touch with me and let me know what's going on. I'm willing to work with you on this. I'm not here to say, count absences and get ready to fail people. I don't look forward to that. That's not what I'm here for. But attendance is important. In other words, don't just disappear. Stay in touch. Let me know what's going on. Yes, there are exceptions. In general, I used to say before COVID that I didn't accept health excuses. And I told everybody that meant, come when you're able to, because if you get sick, you're going to need a couple of those absences without deduction. Now, of course, I do accept health excuses. I don't want you to, when we're in person, I don't want you to come to class sick. But you need to show me that you went to the health center or something. Just email me a copy of the slip or something like that. And of course, prearranged absences for a religious holiday. Let me know ahead of time. and if any other reasons, I might grant you a reason to miss class. But any of those cases that you have to miss class for any reason, you're still required to do the work. Okay. And that might be another case to get a hold of a teaching assistant, to go to Nate or Mackenzie and ask them for help catching up on something that we missed. Social distancing, face covering, desk cleaning. I'm going to remind you about this as we begin our first in-person session, but just say it briefly now. There are requirements, and if you did in-person classes last semester, you're very familiar with them. But if you didn't, and that's going to be new to you, doing an in-person class under COVID, well, we'll go over them. It just comes down to you got to wear your mask in the class all the time. You don't move your desks around, and you clean your hands and the desk when you come in, and then ideally when you go out again, but please at least when you come in. That's all it comes down to. Cheating, I suppose I don't think there's a lot of room for cheating in this class. But anyway, it would be bad. So don't do it, I guess. That's what it comes down to. In fact, this is a journalism class. And in journalism, on top of the normal code of conduct, we have, like for plagiarism, which is a possibility, I suppose, we have much more severe penalties in journalism because, hey, we've had problems in the industry. So among our students, we make honesty an extremely important thing. So just let you know, it's not good to get caught cheating in any classes. It's especially bad to get caught cheating in a journalism class. What else? Schedule, use a daily schedule. I showed that to you all already. Jack's Journalism Lounge, I'm not going to show you, but I have a Facebook group, which is available. It's not required in any way. There's a link on Moodle. Take a look at it if you wish. If you're interested in journalism in general, journalism-based discussions or news or so on, you could join it or whatever. All right, class conduct guidelines. Again, these apply more to in-person. I just the first session like this, I like to tell everybody about them because just so we get off to the right start and you kind of get a feeling for what the classroom setup is. It's a little weird doing it here like this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Our speeches, with the exception of one, which is, we call it a reading from manuscript, or we also call it the poetry presentation, which is quite a bit later in the semester, are extemporaneous speaking. Extemporaneous speaking. What that means is we prepare, we practice, we have notes in some cases, but we don't memorize. All right. When we speak, we'd like it to be as if it's coming from your heart right then, almost as if you're making it up right then. It has that immediacy. So in other words, we don't write down a whole speech and memorize it. That would be bad. And that's what the point is here with this number one. You might end up, in some speeches, you will use cards, index cards, that you'll have notes on, but they will be like key words to try to prompt you and not like entire sentences. Perhaps with the exception of maybe the introduction to some degree and maybe part of the conclusion. But even then, we don't want them to sound like you were reading them. We never memorize. That goes for number two also. Yes, you dress appropriately when we do a presentation in class particularly. And no big deal there. And it makes sense not to be chewing things during a presentation. Number four, that was. Number five, well, if nothing else, we want to make sure that you're going to be speaking in front of other people, okay? We want to make sure that the language is inclusive, is not discriminatory, is not offensive in any way. So if you had any thought that something that you were maybe going to say might head down that road, you got to talk to me ahead of time, or else I'm going to stop you if I really thought you were being offensive or discriminatory with the presentation. Do I need number 6? I don't think I should need number 6 to say don't bring weapons, drugs, or alcohol to class, but we don't want to bring food to class either for a couple of reasons. First of all, you're wearing masks. You're not allowed to eat in class. So don't bring the food. It can be distracting to other students too. Drinks. Ideally, theoretically, you're not supposed to have a drinking class either. I mean, you're not supposed to pull your mask down for that. I suppose if you really needed to take a drink and you just sipped quickly and put it down, but it had to be a sealed drink. And even then, it's advisable to not bring drinks either. Come prepared on speaking days, yes. Well, here's the key part of number 7. Imagine you're going to be in a classroom it's going to be your turn to speak. You're going to stand up. You're going to feel nervous. Everyone's going to applaud as you walk up to the front. We are all trying to be supportive and helpful. And that means when you're speaking, we're paying attention. We're not doing other things. We're not perhaps looking over our notes to get ready for our presentation. No, when you're in the audience, you have a job to do, and it's to be helpful, supportive, interested, listening. Turn off all cell phones then. That would apply to number 8. That would be the kind of distraction that we don't want to be having during class when your job is either to listen to me, or more important than me is listening to the other students when they give a presentation. And therefore, imagine that you were up there giving your presentation, and there was and you're halfway through it, and someone comes banging in through the door, comes in late. That would be, for the person who came in late, that would be a serious deduction for them. They would be penalized for that. If you happen to ever come in late during a presentation day, you carefully look and wait for that person to be done before you come in. All right. Ideally, you get to class on time. I start pretty close to on time in classes anyway, but so what else? Never walk on the speaker. No, we don't record presentations. And you have to be an attentive audience member. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go out of this, and I've got let me stop my share for a minute and see what else I'm supposed to show you. I want to show you the textbook. Okay. So this is the version of the textbook, which is probably showing up backwards to you, but who knows? Anyway, there are a couple earlier editions of the textbook. This is the 13th. If you actually stumble across a 12th or even an 11th, for some reason you bought that by accident, maybe. Actually, it'd be okay. There'd be like one chapter I'd have to give you separately. So if that happens, you got the wrong book, okay. If there's some reason that the textbook is going to be a very long time in coming for you, it's going to be long delayed, please make sure to tell me about that, because I'd help you out in some way. So there's some, you just joined the class, you didn't know about the textbook, for some reason you're someplace else, you've got to order it right now, it's going to be weeks to get here, I don't know what. Please tell me, we'll try to do something. If you're not here on campus, it's going to be tough, but anyway, let me know about that. Okay, let me see what the time I have left. What else I want to tell you? Okay, let's look back at Moodle again. Let me see. Already, I have a note from Nate. Nate, you sent me a note about the magazine project.
Yeah, you said we couldn't use Ward Hall. How
Okay.
are we going to do that?
You mean for the you mean for this thing, right?
Yeah.
For making the collage. I'm going to show everyone the collage in a minute. You are still going to do that, but we may have to make some adjustments, and people will have to use what they have. Ward Hall is not open today. I'm hoping that it will be open. They're going to straighten out and open it for the rest of these weeks, but more about that in a minute. Thank you for reminding me about that. Okay, I'm gonna again though share my screen. Let me just get out of that thing for a minute to show you a couple more Moodle things. Don't worry, we are getting towards the end of today. And here we go. Okay, so yes, that was the syllabus, and then there was the general question forum. I don't think anybody much of anybody using that. Those of you who have had me for other classes, or you do later, you will know or you will learn that I tend to use Moodle for like an introduction, as a way, like a Moodle forum where you introduce yourself to me and the other students. But this class is different because you're going to do an introduction with something that's called a collage project, a sort of introduction. So that's not really what this is for. Okay. So I mentioned the study guide 1, study guide, okay? And let me close up that tab. So the study guide is something you could begin working on right away. Here, this sitting in this part of the Moodle page, I've given you the materials I'm going to be using or need you to use during these first 4 remote classes. And they kind of are divided up in sections, the first sections, fourth, and then fourth, that pretty much relate to what I'll probably be using that during that class. So there's 2 things that are big, long files: the word distinction guide and study guide 1. All right. Study guide 1, and there's going to be 3 study guides, but only the first one is going to be handled during. You'll be starting at least during these remote weeks. It's actually a way to kind of both sort of enforce you doing the reading, and it's not just the reading from the textbook, but it's reading from some handouts too, and also to stress with you the stuff which is going to be on the test. For each of these study guides, there's a corresponding test. So there's a test 1, a test 2, a test 3. They don't necessarily correspond to, like, one of them is not a midterm, one of them is not a final. It's just 3 tests that go through the material in that way, and they relate to the study guides. So if I click on this study guide, let me just bring it up. You'll see that it's for chapters 1 through 7, and I've asked you to read chapters 1 and 2. So it would make sense as you read chapters 1 and 2 to fill out the study guide. But here's the thing. I really want the study guide filled out by hand. All right. Now, when I either am able to get you a packet of material, this would be in the packet of material. Yeah, I don't want you to have to go blow a huge amount of paper and print it yourself. I suppose that would be an option. But for these first couple of weeks, it's not, you won't have finished the study guide. It will take longer than that. One option would be, and it's okay with me if you do this, is to start doing the study guide just on regular paper. Okay. In other words, I don't want you to type the study guide. I want you to do it by hand. So don't type it, but you don't have to have this piece of paper and this PDF. You could begin it and just start doing it by hand. Just go for number 2, just list out those A, B, C, D, so on, and then just put number straight right on top of paper, study guide 1, and then you could, later when you hand it in, yes, the first whatever number of pages of the study guide that you did are, then in chapter 2 and so on, are on a different sheet of paper, but that's okay. You would just staple it to this thing, which you will get this on paper in class, if not before, at least in our first in-person class. Does that kind of make sense? So I want you to do it by hand. Doesn't have to be on this, and you don't have to like redo it if you've done some of this. You don't have to then copy it all down again when you get the on paper one. Do look at the very back of this thing when you are scrolling through this, and it goes on forever. My gosh, chapter 6, chapter 7. There's some stuff here which is I'm going to be lecturing on next class, and there's a handout related to it to define these things, and then some that come a little later. And then there's these word distinctions, and they're alphabetical. So this is word distinctions A through C. By the way, you'll see the name Nora Montanaro on a number of these things. Nora is the woman who originated this class, who developed and created this class, and some of these handouts are still hers. If we have a chance, we may actually have a visit from her. We'll see. But Nora is an amazing public speaking instructor, but she's retired or semi-retired now, so she's not available. Sorry, it's just me. So these word distinctions. What the heck are these word distinctions that you're going to do? Well, let me show you about those. There's a word distinction guide here. All right. Again, you shouldn't print this thing. This is a Word document actually, and it's going to take it's a big Word document. And let me bring it up. I'll show it to you. Here it comes. Here it comes. Yeah, I should have opened this beforehand, but okay. Okay. All right. Oops. View, one page. Let's zoom that a little bit. All right. I'm not really showing this to you to show you like the individual detail of it or anything, but just to show you that it is a very long document with about word distinctions that you're gonna need to write down in the study guide. So there's sort of some copying, but you have to come up with your own examples there in the study guide when you write them out. And you're gonna need to learn these for the exam. So that you see the study guide did A through C, and you see I'm still an A at this point. So it goes on for some time. These are often commonly confused words or words that people have problems, word distinctions, and word usage issues too. So it really is very useful to you in all kinds of writing. So it's part of the writing part of this course. I don't spend any time or much time going over the word distinctions in class. It's kind of like I give you this document, you've got the study guide, we have to go through it. I'll give you one little preparation thing before the actual exam, and then you got the exam, where that chunk would be on the exam, A through C in this case. Does that make sense? I hope. All right. All right. So I showed you the syllabus summary, study guide 1, word distinctions. And you should have at this point already received email from me on the personal data sheets, which is like some sort of personal questions, not that personal. And it's really important to me that you, and some people already replied. I already saw that some people sent them in. Thank you very much. If you haven't done that yet, or you're doing it now, I'll try to do it today if possible. Don't be afraid. I mean, it's important that you tell me if you have any issues with public speaking. You've maybe had some public speaking disasters in the past, or maybe you love public speaking. And especially if you have any physical infirmities or problems of any kind, which makes any of this difficult. Or you tell me, you did public speaking in high school and you threw up every time or something. I don't know. Tell me about any problems like this. Can't solve all your problems. But one of the first big things we're going to talk about next class is communication apprehension. In other words, fear of public speaking or anxiety about public speaking, which is extremely common. And I know all about from personal experience. So it'll help me to even better focus that talk next time if you've been honest with me in those personal data sheets and about how you feel about it and things that have happened. So tell me anything in there you think might be useful along those lines in particular. Okay, so that was the personal data sheets. And now what Nate suggested that I tell you about. Okay, I'm not going to assign this today, but your first presentation is going to use what we call it the collage presentation. All right, now this might be a little hard for you to see. All right, but do your best. I'm going to give a presentation using this. I'll probably do my presentation next class when I will be assigning this. I believe it's next class or the class after. And you will be making one yourself of your own. This applies to you. And you'll be using it in a presentation also in what will be our second in-person class. And what is it? Okay. When I do my presentation next class, it'll be clear. It's a little awkward here doing it like this on Zoom because you'll be standing up with it beside you and more like motioning to the things as you talk, okay? It's kind of like the guide that you will use for your presentation. It's a collage. Now, what's on the collage? Stuff that's important to you, stuff that makes sense in the part of your life that you're going to be talking about. It could just be on your collage. It might be just my favorite hobbies, music that I like to listen to, different recording artists. It could be, the family stuff. It could be whatever. I don't know what it is. But now, if we were in person, I have a room downstairs here, which is full of magazines, like hundreds of magazines, of all different magazines. And you can chop them up too. I mean, they're not just, it's not like a museum or something. So you go in there with a pair of scissors and you could take out pictures. They wouldn't be the pictures exactly like your picture, like that's not me in that picture, but I wanted to talk about kayaking. So I got some picture from some magazine somewhere, whatever. Okay, so maybe where you are right now, you might have access to some magazines. Okay, maybe you don't. Maybe you have access to something. Maybe all you've got is some pen and pencil, or maybe a marker or something. Maybe you have access to a printer. You have to do your best. But it is not an art. You're not being graded on the artistic value of this thing. Okay, you're just making it as a regular size sheet of paper. Yes, this is a blue sheet of paper. Yours may very well be white, and that's okay. Maybe it's just a ripped piece of paper out of a notebook if it has to be. That's okay. Um, Now, for anybody who wants to use magazines and is on campus and we get access to Ward Hall, I will tell you about maybe some arrangements about that next class. You will need to have this done um, before we start our in-person week. And hopefully if we even practiced it on your own, because then you will be practicing it on Monday and or Tuesday and or earlier in the day, Wednesday, before you do the presentation on Wednesday of our third week. Okay. So there's no requirement that this collage stuff has to be about a particular part of you or your life. You decide that. Some people really use it and they just focus in on one thing. Some people use it and they are really broadly, talking about. And another thing that's important to me is my pet. And another thing that's important to me is my skateboard or whatever. I hope that kind of makes sense. So I show it to you now to kind of, so you can start thinking about it. Just don't have to do anything about it yet. This is actually one from this is one from Nora Montanaro, who was the originator of this class. And again, you see, it's not artistic merit here. And you can draw things on it too, or write things on it too, if that's going to be helpful to you also. So it doesn't have to be just pictures. It could be words or something, or symbols or something. Okay. I'm almost done here and nobody's asked a question. Is it because of such a perfect presentation I'm doing?
You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. And now my phone's ringing. I think that's a good time to end it then. So are there any questions though? Excuse me for just a moment. Hello, this is Jack Downs. Hey, I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting. Can you call me back in like 10 minutes? Thank you. And I should have just put our department chair, Jonathan Slater, there on the Zoom call, but anyway. Yes, was there a question out there?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes,
So
please.
when we give like a presentation in person, are we gonna have to wear a mask?
Yes,
Like while we're talking?
you are. And that's gonna feel a little weird at first. Doing a presentation with a mask on, like teaching with a mask on, which felt a little weird too. It does mean that you probably speak a little more slowly and try to speak a little more clearly and maybe a little more loudly. But honestly, it's a nice classroom, considering that we have the distant desks and everything. It really isn't that large. It's good acoustics. So we really didn't have any problem last semester with people being heard or being understood. I had hoped originally when we went into the COVID situation with the masks and everything, that we would be able to get a permission so the person standing up there talking well away from everybody else would be able to take their mask off. But the college rules are absolutely, you're inside a building, you keep your masks on, that's it. So that's it, but you'll get used to it. Other questions? All right. Hey, I don't have anything else for you. something comes to mind, all right, drop me an email, whatever, or bring a question to next class or something like that. I'm not gonna belabor this. Yes, some of our classes will go the full time. Theoretically, this class goes until quarter after, but that's all I've got for you. And it's nice seeing everybody. And I'll see you on Zoom on Wednesday, and we'll get into a little bit of content as best we can in the situation. So do your reading, start your study guide, and start thinking about your collage. See you later, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
long. Nice to see you.
Take care.